"Them pigtails got on my nerves," says Jane. You can see how much more stylish and becoming the present coiffure is. I think somebody will be wanting to adopt her. Only Sadie Kate is such an independent, manly little creature, she is eminently fitted by nature to shift for herself. I must save adopting parents for the helpless ones. You should see our new clothes. I can't wait for this assemblage of rosebuds to burst upon you. And you should have seen those blue ginghamed eyes brighten when the new frocks were actually given out. 3 for each girl. All different colors and all perfectly private personal property, with the owner's indelible name inside the collar. Mrs. Lippett's lazy system of having each child draw from the wash a promiscuous dress each week was an insult to feminine nature. Sadie Kate is squealing like a baby pig. I must go to see if Jane has by mistake clipped off an ear. Jane hasn't. Sadie's excellent ears are still intact. She is just squealing on principle, the way one does in a dentist's chair, under the belief that it is going to hurt the next instant. I really can't think of anything else to write except my news, so here it is, and I hope you like it. I am engaged to be married. My love to you both, S. McB. The John Grier Home, November 15. Dear Judy: Betsy and I are just back from a gyro in our new motor car. It undoubtedly does add to the pleasure of institution life. The car, of its own accord, turned up Long Ridge Road and stopped before the gates of Shadywell. The chains were up, and the shutters battened down, and the place looked closed and gloomy and rain-soaked. It wore a sort of fall of the House of Usher air, and didn't in the least resemble the cheerful house that used to greet me hospitably of an afternoon. I hate to have our nice summer ended. It seems as though a section of my life was shut away behind me, and the unknown future was pressing awfully close. Positively, I'd like to postpone that wedding another 6 months, but I'm afraid poor Gordon would make too dreadful a fuss. Don't think I'm getting wobbly, for I'm not. It's just that somehow I need more time to think about it, and March is getting nearer every day. I know absolutely that I'm doing the most sensible thing. Everybody, man or woman, is the better for being nicely and appropriately and cheerfully married. But oh dear, I do hate upheavals, and this is going to be such a world without end upheaval. Sometimes when the day's work is over and I'm tired, I haven't the spirit to rise and meet it. And now, especially since you've bought Shadywell and are going to be here every summer, I resent having to leave. Next year, when I'm far away, I'll be consumed with homesickness, thinking of all the busy, happy times at the John Grier, with you and Betsy and Percy, and our grumbly Scotchman working away cheerfully without me. How can anything ever make up to a mother for the loss of 107 children? I trust that Judy Junior stood the journey into town without upsetting her usual poise. I am sending her a bit gifty, made partly by myself and chiefly by Jane, but 2 rows, I must inform you, were done by the doctor. One only gradually plumbs the depths of Sandy's nature. After a 10 months' acquaintance with the man, I discover that he knows how to knit, an accomplishment he picked up in his boyhood from an old shepherd on the Scotch moors. He dropped in 3 days ago and stayed for tea, really in almost his old friendly mood, but he has since stiffened up again to the same man of granite we knew all summer. I've given up trying to make him out. I suppose, however, that anyone might be expected to be a bit down with a wife in an insane asylum. I wish he'd talk about it once. It's awful having such a shadow hovering in the background of your thoughts and never coming out into plain sight. I know this letter doesn't contain a word of the kind of news that you like to hear, but it's that beastly twilight hour of a damp November day, and I'm in a beastly uncheerful mood. I'm awfully afraid that I'm developing into a temperamental person, and heaven knows Gordon can supply all the temperament that one family needs. I don't know where we'll land if I don't preserve my sensibly stolid, cheerful nature. Have you really decided to go south with Jervis? I appreciate your feeling, to a slight extent, about not wanting to be separated from a husband, but it does seem sort of hazardous to me to move so young a daughter to the tropics. The children are playing blind man's buff in the lower corridor. I think I'll have a romp with them and try to be in a more affable mood before resuming my pen. A bientôt, Sallie. P.S. These November nights are pretty cold, and we are getting ready to move the camps indoors. Our Indians are very pampered young savages at present, with a double supply of blankets and hot water bottles. I shall hate to see the camps go. They have done a lot for us. Our lads will be as tough as Canadian trappers when they come in. November 20. Dear Judy: Your motherly solicitude is sweet, but I didn't mean what I said. Of course, it's perfectly safe to convey Judy Junior to the temperately tropical lands that are washed by the Caribbean. She'll thrive as long as you don't set her absolutely on top of the equator. And your bungalow, shaded by palms and fanned by sea breezes, with an ice machine in the backyard and an English doctor across the bay, sounds made for the rearing of babies. My objections were all due to the selfish fact that I and the John Grier are going to be lonely without you this winter. I really think it's entrancing to have a husband who engages in such picturesque pursuits as financing tropical railroads and developing asphalt lakes and rubber groves and mahogany forests. I wish that Gordon would take to life in those picturesque countries. I'd be more thrilled by the romantic possibilities of the future. Washington seems awfully commonplace compared with Honduras and Nicaragua and the islands of the Caribbean. I'll be down to wave good-bye. Addio, Sallie. November 24. Dear Gordon, Judy has gone back to town and is sailing next week for Jamaica, where she is to make her headquarters while Jervis cruises about adjacent waters on these entertaining new ventures of his. Couldn't you engage in traffic in the South Seas? I think I'd feel pleasanter about leaving my asylum if you had something romantic and adventurous to offer instead. And think how beautiful you'd be in those white linen clothes. I really believe I might be able to stay in love with a man quite permanently if he always dressed in white. You can't imagine how I miss Judy. Her absence leaves a dreadful hole in my afternoons. Can't you run up for a weekend soon? I think the sight of you would be very cheering, and I'm feeling awfully down of late. You know, my dear Gordon, I like you much better when you're right here before my eyes than when I merely think about you from a distance. I believe you must have a sort of hypnotic influence. Occasionally, after you've been away a long time, your spell wears a little thin. But when I see you, it all comes back. You've been away now a long, long time, so please, come fast and bewitch me over again. S. End of Part 18.